Welcome everybody to the second workshop for our budget meeting. Today is April 15th and we're just going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to ask for an approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, so we're going to move right into new business, and Ms. Darian, I don't know if you or Ms. Mack has taken us through these items.
Well, I can start off with the review of daily revenue generated from parking that was requested to be looked at. Ricky, can you pull that slide up, please? Thank you. So I had sent the board a copy of this. This was worked on through last night, so you can see the daily revenue that's generated from parking revenue, and of course, our revenue source is split between the two funds, General Fund and Shoreline Protection Fund, which is Fund 10 and Fund 30. You'll see on the updated agenda in blue, it highlights what sheets of the budget spreadsheets that we went over last week, where it is applicable. So is there any questions on the information that's been received?
My only question, and this is, there's a reason that we did it, and
Your microphone's not on here.
some of us were here, and I don't actually remember why, but I know when we implemented paid parking, we wanted it split between the two funds. My only question for the board would be, is that still how we need it or want it to be? And I'm assuming that it's fine the way it is, but I'm just asking that.
So I had another reason to ask for this. I was wanting to go back and do an analysis.
One discussion at a time. One.
One. So were you answering my question, Alice? No. Okay. Rick was just asking. So I don't know, Tom or Connie, do you guys remember?
No.
Mike, do you remember? Okay. It was really just a rhetorical question. I was just wondering why we split it.
At the time, Rick was on the parking committee as well. He might remember, do you? Because you and I were the originals.
I think we were just trying to split it because we thought we were gonna get a lot more. Remember, Tom, the first run of
Yeah.
this thing was like way up.
Yeah.
And then people got smart with it. And I think that we addressed the issue, I'm pretty sure, about whether it all had to go into one fund or another, and we were okay splitting it, Tom. Is that your recollection as well?
Yeah.
I think we handled that issue at the beginning, so I'm fine with what we're doing now.
Okay. Thank
Although
you.
I'm not
Does
on the parking
anybody
committee.
else have any? Okay, Laura, go ahead.
Yeah, so I had sort of asked for it because I wanted to go back and look at the per day revenues by day of the week. And so I'll continue to look at these numbers and do that analysis.
Well, I just am, from a budget perspective, is there something that you are looking to try and change? Because if it's going to impact the number, then we would need to know that.
Yes, so I was looking at the lowest revenue day to see if we could make the lowest revenue day a free day for the public.
For what, which public? Like where, the town public? Because they do already have the 2 parking passes per family.
General public visiting our beaches.
Okay.
There are 4 county-run lots that are free every day of the year.
And again, so today, I'm going to try really hard to keep us on what we're doing today task-wise, so it's for budget. So right now, I believe as a board, we're leaving it, assuming that last year's is coming over to this year.
Connie?
Yes.
Okay, just real quick, just so we don't spend any more time on it than we need to. Is Laura the only one that wants to is looking into 1 day free, or is that the whole board's consensus or a majority? Because if it's only one person, we may as well just move on. If it's a majority, then let's investigate this further.
I actually feel that because we have the Onslow County lots that we, because we have the partnership with Onslow County, we're the only beach on Topsail and the South End has some free parking, but nobody else has what we have already to offer as free parking.
And we're lower than the other.
We're lower.
So do we want to poll the board to see whether we need to spend any more time on this in the future?
Yeah, we can do that.
All right, let's do that.
So Connie?
No.
Mike?
No.
Tom?
No.
Laura?
Yes.
Rick?
No.
Okay. So from budget, again, I'm sticking to budget, we're gonna leave the numbers the same as was presented to us. Okay, so the next item, finalize the funding for the Chamber of Commerce.
Yes, the next two items fall within the governing bodies line items of the budget. The Greater Topsail Area Chamber of Commerce and Tourism has requested the annual financial commitment of $3,500. So per the board's direction, that was left in as a placeholder for this meeting. So that has remained. This is the amount that they've requested. Last year's commitment was $2,500.
Maybe last year's is enough again this year.
I agree. I'd leave it.
Okay.
I don't
would ac-
feel we've gotten any additional services.
I'm actually okay with it being less than last year's because I don't believe we get any services.
We'll take it down to $2,000. I'm fine with that.
Mike?
I'm good with $2,000.
Go ahead, Laura.
Alice, do you perceive any benefit from our contribution?
Well, I can tell you that we meet monthly with the Chamber of Commerce. I know that the mayor
I've started attending this.
has monthly meetings. I meet with the chamber director and the other managers as well. We have an event that's planned next month where each town is giving highlights at a chamber meeting, so we do participate.
We participate, though. We don't see a ton of benefit because of our makeup as a town. We don't have a lot of commercial businesses here. So I do see a huge benefit for Surf City. I think they do a lot for the businesses there. We just don't have that makeup of them being able to do that much for us.
Can I just make a quick comment? I am fine with 2,000, and then when we get to Ocean City, I'm gonna propose we move the 1,500 to Ocean City. Jazz Festival, so.
So can we poll the board and see? So Connie, 2,
2.
Mike,
2?
Tom,
2.
Laura,
2.
Rick.
1999, not 2.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Jazz Festival.
So, okay. The next item is finalizing the funding amount for the Ocean City Jazz Festival. The Board of Aldermen agreed for a $10,000 placeholder at the last budget meeting. So that is what you have now. That has been what the amount has been requested is $10,000 for this year, and $10,000 is what was allocated this past fiscal year.
Okay, discussion from the board. I
I just have one clarification. Is this what they requested, or is this what we have done in the past? Did they actually request it?
Yes, they were, and I confirmed with them yesterday that that was the dollar amount
Okay.
continued to be requested.
And remember, on top of that dollar amount, the town also provides a ton of services.
That
there.
doesn't include the 10.
Yes, we also, we provide various services through our Public Works Department, police, fire, so all the departments are involved.
Okay, so why don't we go around again? Connie, what do you think?
Yeah.
I'll stop picking on you after this one. What did you say? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
10,000?
No. Did you?
11.5.
11.5?
She's saying.
Okay.
I'm saying what Rick said.
Okay. Mike?
11.5. Okay.
Concur.
Okay. Laura?
I think we should go with the 10 that they asked.
Rick?
I'd go with the 11.5.
Okay, it's 11.5. All right, so snowflakes.
Okay, the next item is further discussion on snowflakes. We were asked to look at, to confirm how many that we have. We have, let's see, hold up, I'm just pulling up the information here. We have 75 that are complete and ready to go, and then we have 15 that are also in the back of Public Works that are being prepped to be stripped and powder coated and rewired. So 75 and then 15 additional that can be repaired.
So 75 ready and 15 that could be used for replacements if one goes out or something.
Correct.
Which they do.
And I think,
And the cost for the powder coating is
It's in the budget.
$2,100. They're $140 each to powder coat. The wire rolls, which require 2 rolls, are $560 each. Bulbs are $500, and another part is $100.
Can I just ask one follow-up question? I'm fine with what you've recommended. My question for you is, we don't have to do it in this budget. Do we need to start, I know that you're rebuilding them and doing all that kind of stuff, and I think that Wendy talked about buying new ones. Should we try to get ahead of this thing in terms of, should we be buying more new ones? And
Yeah, we've, historically, the last couple years, I've been adding in there for 2 to 3 replacements per year. So as I mentioned before, so we don't get to a point where we're replacing all of them at one time. Is there an issue with that?
No, that's fine. That's
Do we
what
know
I'm
how
saying.
many man-hours it takes to refurb one of these?
6 hours. 6 hours to rewire it, the powder coating is done off-site.
and I think the question came up at the last meeting, can we add additional? And I do believe that there's involvement from Jones Onslow and things that would be required, because Wendy had mentioned that those specific poles are set up differently to handle the snowflakes.
So Wendy, do we have any poles that could handle them that don't have flakes now?
I talked to Joe MC and they said there could probably be an additional.
You have to go to the microphone, so Nancy captures it. Well, Nancy needs to capture it.
Joe MC said there are potentially 90 to 100 poles total on the island that would qualify, but they have to do a special inventory because there's numerous criteria the poles have to meet in addition to the whatever the transformer on them.
Okay.
And they'd have to do a special inventory to do, they didn't have time to do it yesterday. He said they'd have to drive and show us every single one. So we could add, an additional, 23?
Right.
He said Surf City has 120 that they utilize, and then Topsail Beach had fewer than us. I can't remember the exact number. Might have been 60. But we are at the point, if we do that, then we have to buy additional brackets for hanging them, which we have to have made. Then there'd be a power plug-in that we have to create ourselves, and we attach that. Then Joe MC has to come in and hook them all up. So we'd have to work with Joe MC to get them to work with us on that.
Okay.
And they also have to approve every single pole. We can't just attach without their pre-approval.
Right. Okay.
So from a budget perspective, what's the board's desire? Leave it as budgeted for this year or make any changes? So I'm gonna start with Rick this time. I'll stop picking on Connie first.
I'm fine with leaving it like it is, but if Alice wanted to say, give me another 5,000 or something in there so we can do all this work and find out in the front end what we can and can't do, I'd be okay with that as well. Would
Okay.
something like 5 be enough and something like that, Alice?
Yeah.
But Alice, do you want to increase that by 5,000 or leave it?
It's the board's discretion.
Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to look at us getting to capacity at some point as a strategic plan over the next couple of years, because we're also gonna have, I think the labor's gonna go up on these things, so putting more in the budget to add some this year, next year, so that we get up to the number of poles we can have. And during that same time, we know we're gonna have ones that can't be refurbed. So I would like to see an increase in the budget and then see us hold that every year so that we can work towards the total 93 poles. Is that the number? Yeah, yeah, so that we could get to the point where we could have one on each of the poles that we'd like.
So it's not gonna be helpful unless we come up with a dollar figure from a budget? I know, that's what I was gonna ask Laura, if that's what she wants to agree with, or,
I think a 5 additional this year works.
okay. Tom?
Concur.
Mike?
I would rather see, if we do an additional 5, I'd rather see that go towards replacing the ones that need to be replaced. I think you can overdo a decoration such that like you see a commercial on TV too much, you get sick of watching it. And if you see a snowflake on every 93 poles in town, I mean, what have the kids got to look for out the back window of the car except when they can find, you know, the next one, oh, here's one
The
coming
mermaid.
up, not one
Mermaid.
every time I blink.
Or a pirate.
Connie, what would you?
I'd like to add in the extra 5,000 as well. And to Mike's point, maybe in the future when we're looking at these, maybe we should be mixing it up from the snowflakes so the kids, not just the kids, so that we have a little bit of variety. We have a small variety now, but for future, but just for right now, add the 5,000.
So I believe it's 5,000, and it's really gonna be the
More comment, depending on where you are on the island, like you could go a half a mile in the south end
There's a
and not
break.
have one at all.
Yeah, there's a break.
So I think we do need to look at spacing and where we work with Jones Onslow to kind of make them more evenly spread out.
And there's room for more. There really is, I think.
Right, but back to that, having come from the utility business, what she's gonna tell us is, they're gonna tell us there's some of the poles are not, they're
The-
not capable, and
so
that's why they're
again-
not there.
so-
So leave it to her discretion.
Yeah, leave it to her discretion, and our goal today is to focus on the budget dollars. Okay, we're good. All right, the next one is the follow-up for e-check capabilities, and I just wanted to, and Laura and I spoke about this for a minute yesterday. I believe the goal, again, is to have something in the budget to handle this should we want to move forward with it in the future. So I think, Deborah, were you gonna check and see how much that was?
Yes, and I'm waiting for a quote to come through. There's some additional training they'll need to give us, and we should have it this week.
Okay.
So when, if your approval is whatever that quote comes in to add it, we can do that.
Is there an estimate that? Okay.
So is there a placeholder that you'd feel comfortable putting in, Alice?
Let's just wait and put it on the May agenda.
Okay. You wanna do that? Okay.
One comment, I think that some of this is going to be tied to what software our finance person is going to be comfortable and experienced using once we hire that person. So we kind of, at a point, need to put money aside, but keep in mind that, you know, we're not gonna sign up for anything right away until we get to a point where we have a finance director.
Yes.
Placeholder. I do think we need a placeholder for software upgrades.
Yeah.
And then once the finance director's on board, they can determine that. But I think getting the idea of what one module is in an ERP is a good idea.
Can I start, Mayor?
Unless Alice wants to start, do you want to start? Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I would propose, having taken a look at this, I would propose the following, that we do a 3% cost of living, and then merit up to 5%. So we've got a placeholder in the budget for compensation, but I think that, and looking around at some of the other towns and stuff, I'm much more comfortable with doing COLA, which becomes across the board, but I think it has to be, the other piece has to be merit, and it would be up to 5%, but that allows us to put a number in the budget. So I'd throw that out for consideration.
So when you talk merit, you're talking, then the manager has the ability to use that 5%, maybe 1% for one person, 2% for another person, up to the
Not across the
department
board.
head, not across the board. So it becomes the ability of the manager,
A true merit.
a true merit. Okay.
It would go back to the review process and the department heads that hold their reviews with the employees on their anniversary date. They would go through the evaluation process and be scored accordingly, and then assign up to, it would be, if you're saying 5%, up to 5% based on performance
Are you okay
during
with
that review. That's the direction of the board at this time.
Okay. Do you have something else, Laura? I'm gonna move on to Tom.
Nope, go ahead.
Tom?
I'm good with the 3 and the 5, up to 5.
Mike?
The governor is recommending a 2% pay raise for state employees. I'm sort of in the position of 3 COLA and 3 for merit.
Okay, Connie?
I'm good with the 3 COLA, 5 merit.
Okay, and I just want to restate that what the board is requesting would be the 3% COLA or cost of living and up to 5% based on performance of the employee. It is not an across the board. Right.
Perfect.
Okay. All right, so do we have what we need on that to move forward? Okay. All right, and now we wanted to also to follow on that would be training payback. So,
Yeah, this is to get further direction from the board if this is something that you want staff to pursue. Chad could speak to it if need be.
and I think the discussion that came up at the last meeting, if I remember correctly, is we are a training ground for a lot of new folks that are entering the workforce. So police and fire, I think, specifically spend a lot of time and effort training them. And I believe the board was asking for feedback as to whether we should ask them to be signing up for maybe a year of employment with us, or if they leave before that, they pay us back something.
I
So,
think
go
Chief
ahead.
can give insight as to what the current
That'd be
environment
helpful.
is.
Thank you.
So you got 98% of our staff comes pre-qualified, right? We hire people that already have the certifications. So you're not gaining anything by signing them up for a year. If the town was looking at transitioning to like a paramedic department and we were going to send them to school for 2 years at our cost, absolutely 100%, right? Because we're investing a ton of time. But, you know, our guys are going to like 28-hour classes and 38-hour classes. We're not spending a ton, you know, per person, the way it sounds. But if we were investing in their degree, because, you know, a paramedic now is a degree program, I agree 100%. Yes, we need a contract for them to sign. But just for our normal day-to-day classes we're sending them to, I don't see where the juice is worth the squeeze. And the police chief actually informed me the town used to have that, and they went away from it. So he can talk on that.
Chief, but when you say the 28-hour class before you go, or the 30, when you put numbers to that, if you could, so the board knows, is that like a $500 class, or is that a?
It's actually free because the state
Okay.
pays for it because it's through the community college. What we're paying for is like their lunch. We're giving them a vehicle
Okay.
to drive, stuff like that, just
All
to
right,
support
so
them.
it's not a big number?
No, ma'am,
numbers.
not at
Okay.
all.
Thank you.
What, I have one. Do we have anybody that is doing the paramedic, do we ever have anybody doing the paramedic class? And do we offer or encourage them to do that?
So we do not, because we do not operate at the paramedic level. That's a whole different state certification we would have to obtain. We did have 2 guys that were certified paramedics that worked with Pender County on their off days and worked in Duplin County in their off days, but currently we do not have any.
Okay, thanks.
And the other thing we do, and a lot of the training we send them to is free. It's just the cost of getting them there and all that. And we also encourage people to come here because we give them all that training, and hopefully they'll stay because they can go to all the training they want to go to here. Larger departments, you know, I got to get you on the road. We're going to keep you on the road. I don't have time to send you. And a lot of it we do in the wintertime when it's off.
And we also, years ago, I don't know how much is happening now, but years ago, we did have some folks who took advantage of the tuition reimbursement. Do we still have that program?
We do.
So that is also an opportunity for them as well.
I have 4 guys that are using it now.
That's awesome. Good. Any additional? Yes, Rick?
My take on this is, you go back to the juice isn't worth the squeeze on this kind of stuff. We start trying to track this stuff from an accounting standpoint. Did my time count where I was driving? Did I get, you know, you're getting into a nightmare in terms of how you're gonna track this stuff. And, I mean, I don't see the value in doing that. And I think that, to me, the retention thing is gonna be more about what they're getting paid rather than whether they get something else, so.
We're not spending enough on their training to make it worth the trouble, and there's not enough of an incentive because to try to implement a program like this, because from what I'm understanding from the two chiefs, we're not spending any money on their training. Somebody else is.
Right.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. All right, so, that one? That's a no. Alice, do you need anything else on that? And then the next item, recap of the proposed draft 25-26 budget, additional information received.
So Ricky, if you can pull up the sheets from the last meeting. This is just an opportunity for the board to go through and revisit any line items that you want to go back to, or if you have any further questions on, any changes that you want to make. I did make one change, which is for a boom lift that we received through the LESO program with the police department. It's been parked out here recently. We anticipate it will need some repairs, so I just increased the maintenance and repair equipment line item in Public Works, $6,000, just to give a buffer for any potential increases as it's being assessed. And the boom lift will be a good asset for the town to have, particularly with our tree lighting event. We usually have to rent one. Anytime we need a lift, we have to rent it, so this will be a good asset for the town to have.
That'd help out on the beach too, and pick stuff up.
Sure.
So, I'm trying to read the spreadsheet. So the Orbit retirement, is that the actual number? I know last budget meeting
Yeah,
you were waiting.
We
for that.
still have that as a placeholder, because
Okay.
those numbers have still not come in. We're still using the same assumptions that we had from the last meeting for retirement and for insurance.
I'm just reading, I'm sorry. Does the board have any additional questions based on what we've discussed at the last meeting? On this, we have to wait for the real numbers, but was there
Anything else you want
anything else
overall?
that we wanted to discuss?
Yeah, I want to talk about something. Police vehicle request. I'm going to take it from 2 down to 1, and the 1 being the one that's going to be, the one that we're getting should be the one that we're having replaced through the mishap that occurred on March 30th. So we get PD gets 1 new vehicle next year, and it's the replacement vehicle.
Do we have a page number there?
Can you clarify too, just the timing of that, and if there's an update?
The adjuster came to look at it the other day, they have not given us anything back, but I had already put 2 vehicles in there to be replaced. That vehicle was already in there to be replaced.
That was
Before that. That was one of the 2 that I already put in there.
It's on page
Okay.
55. GF
What,
55.
can you repeat what page that is?
GF 55.
Thank you.
So I'm saying take 2 down to 1. That's my recommendation.
So Bill, the two
We've got
that-
3 spares. We've got 3 spares according to the last thing we were briefed on. I apologize for
you're
interrupting you.
fine.
So I'm saying take the 2 down to 1 new one, which hopefully will be partially paid by the insurance claim, to replace the one that was going to be replaced anyway, that was going to be more than likely totaled because of all the saltwater damage to it. Are we having more than one conversation up here? So that's my point. 2 down to 1.
So, I do know, Bill, the last time you presented, we have a couple spares. I do believe we staff up slightly in the summertime with some additional part-time officers. That may be incorrect, but, so
We
are
do.
those spares being fully used in peak season? And
They are, and we leave vehicles for maintenance every week, so the officers have something to drive home. I also gave you a list of all the mileages on the vehicles, and you have several vehicles that are pretty high mileage. And I take over 100,000 miles on a police vehicle is high mileage. Not on my personal vehicle at home, but idle time and that kind of thing adds up to its downtime, and the maintenance costs would go up, but
Historically, we have been very generous with vehicle replacement over the last several years. And don't get me wrong, I appreciate everything your department does, but we also have an obligation to our taxpayers. And that's where this is coming from. We've historically been very generous with replacing vehicles. We, one year did, I think, 2 years' worth of vehicles, or there was something that had to do with the fact that Dodge was not making Hemi Chargers anymore. So, I mean, we should be good on vehicles. And so I'd like to see, given the cost of these two things, I would like to see us cut the two down to one, with the understanding also that part of that one is going to more than likely be paid for, in part, by our insurance settlement on the vehicle that I presume, because it ended up in the surf, got totaled. And that's my justification for the change.
not
so-
sure yet if they're gonna total it. The other thing we have done in the past, and you may think about, is, and I'm not trying to be greedy, because y'all do take care of us really well. And one of the things that I brag about when officers come here is that the people like us in the town, they love us. They enjoy seeing more police out, not less. We get good equipment. We might get paid less than some of the others, but we take care of them with training and all those other things. So one of the other things you can look at is if you're gonna buy a vehicle for another department, there's an opportunity to rotate one of the other higher mileage vehicles out and trade them out. We did that one time with Public Works.
Okay, so we have a recommendation from Mayor Pro Tem. So, Rick, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I don't have any problem at all with the recommendation. Also, keep in mind, with the contingency fund that we have built into the budget, to the extent that we need to replace vehicles, because the chief comes back and says, I've got a shortage, I've got this kind of stuff, you can always come back to the board and ask for those things if you need it. So I think what Tom's saying is, let's test the system, all right? And if this works, it works, and it saves some money.
So what you're saying is,
Yes.
take that additional funds, put it in the contingency fund, and should we need to do a budget amendment at some point in time, we have the ability to do that.
And I
Is-
think that Deborah's gonna tell us that's the fact anyway.
That's what I was gonna
It'll
ask.
go into the reduction would go into contingency anyway, correct, Deborah?
That is correct.
So the money would still be there. It's,
That's my.
yes, okay. Yes, Laura?
So what are we saying the price of each one is?
75. That says 65.
130 divided by 2.
And the cost of the upfit.
Two of them was $130,000. That counts upfit. Upfit's $10,000 to $12,000 on a police vehicle.
So the base vehicle is,
About 52.
all right, thank you.
So what does
So-
that bring it up to, about 75 by the time we outfit it, pay taxes and all that stuff, or what? What's the total price out the door when it's ready to go, ready to run down the road, all outfitted? What have we got invested in it?
Almost $70,000.
Okay.
It's like 68.6.
68 or something.
All right, so I'm in favor of one and putting the rest in the contingency.
And Tom, I know what you would
Yep.
like.
You okay with
And
that, Tom?
Mike?
Perfect.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Connie?
I'm good with that as well.
Okay. Any additional questions?
Yeah.
Any additional questions based on our last meeting? Any item that needs to be discussed further? Okay.
So,
Just popping one in.
Go ahead. Laura.
so does that mean if we don't need to address the drones again per vehicle, like we're good? You know, one new vehicle, one new drone?
Yeah, I believe the point of the drones, from what we were told, was that one, per shift, so that the drone
Okay.
doesn't, so I believe that
So
stays the same.
not related to the number of vehicles? Okay.
No, and the other point for the second drone, I think, and Chief, I'm sure will correct me if I'm wrong, but the second thing is if the first drone is, something happens to it,
We have a
it
second.
breaks, we have a backup.
Okay.
Nothing like spare.
All right, then I'm going to move on to the next item, which is the review of the fee schedule. And I'm just going to ask if everybody's had a chance to look at it, if they have questions. Go ahead.
Can I make a recommendation on this? I'm sorry. I started looking through this and I'm generally okay with it. We've got a board meeting coming up. Could we spend a little bit more time at a board meeting going over this? Because having just seen that, I mean, most of this stuff is fine with me, and some of the numbers are gonna relate to how much we're collecting in income and stuff like that. But overall, I'd like a little bit more time to not, some of the stuff at the time is fine. And I'm assuming things like, and I would ask, the solid waste fees, that's tied to the new contract, right? And so there's a lot of stuff in there that I'm probably okay with. But I'd like to digest it a little bit more, and we do have a board meeting in a couple of weeks to go over with. I know we have to publish this, Mayor, before we can do it. It's gotta be part of the budget. But I would just suggest maybe we do a little bit more looking at that, and then maybe have a presentation by Deb or somebody at the board meeting, if we need it.
I don't think this is all Deb, though, right, Alice?
No. Some of it is, some of it's not. Like, I'm okay with the stuff that Alice put in here. I already know that the solid
Well,
waste
if we
is
can,
based on a
if we
contract.
can walk through the notes first.
Okay,
and
let's do
then
that.
That would be
we can
helpful.
go through there.
that.
Yeah, just like
Okay.
you were saying with GFL, with general fees, that is tied to the new contract with GFL. So that has been amended to match up with our new contract that'll take effect July 1. The other thing that I have placed in here under solid waste fees as well is the board enacted years ago a vacant lot fee for $25 per year, which, I would like to have the discussion and feedback from the board to remove this fee because the justification that I've received from people that have been here, where there's not a lot of clear understanding, but it was for, from what I can gather, is fees that's charged to everyone that has a vacant lot in case there is a natural disaster and if there is any cleanup to occur. But we would not be going onto private property to clean up. You have contracts in place right now with Crowder Golf and Tetra Tech that outlines that process, so I'm not sure what you are charging the residents for through that fee at this point in time.
And I do get a lot of calls on that fee, so the residents don't understand it either.
And if there's historical knowledge that I'm not aware of, by all means, I would just like clarification on that, but I think this is one that the board needed to, there needed to be discussion to potentially remove.
It's
Why don't you do
basically,
a consensus on this?
well, it's basically a problem. It's one of those that there's nothing good comes out of it, get a lot of complaints, a lot of bad PR, and I don't know how much.
It's not worth it for $25.
To use something said earlier, the juice ain't worth the squeeze.
Yeah, and revenue-wise, I mean, you're looking at less than $10,000.
So do we have, is there any, can we do a
consensus
consensus on
this? I would
that?
say out.
So is there anybody who disagrees with removing that vacant lot fee? Okay, we're good. Well, I think we're still gonna walk through, which one, are you on the solid waste fees, Laura? Okay, which one did you have a question on?
So the fee for leaving the card out after 10 a.m., do we know? The fee for leaving the card out after 10 a.m., do we know what revenues are associated with that?
This is not something that's tied to GFL, this is tied to the town's ordinance. So that's another thing that you can certainly discuss and determine if you want to continue with or discontinue that, rescind that ordinance. That's, up to the board's discretion, so that's something you can think about.
Okay, and then the replacement.
Can we stay on that one for just 1 second? Because I believe Tom has some historical background on why we started charging for people who weren't bringing their carts in.
Yeah, the issue is, especially on our two main highways, with the carts blowing into the road, and then somebody's got to stop and get out, or somebody hits them, or, I've seen PD pulling back. I've seen Wendy out pulling them back and writing tickets. we've got to find a way to get the attention of people who are not, and especially absentee owners and all that during vacation time. It is an issue, and I know when Barry was still with us, God rest his soul, he used to go out up and down side streets especially and take care of this for us. But I think there is a need for it, particularly on our main roads. Not so much on the side streets that all end up in, in cul-de-sacs, but on our two main roads, because they're a hazard.
Well, and I don't think we can differentiate, and you and I have talked about this. It's the ordinance townwide, it can't be side versus main, but I just wanted people to have the background.
Right, but at the same time, you target the enforcement on the areas where it's most concerning.
Does that help, Laura? Right.
No, I'm totally in favor of keeping
Okay.
it. I wanted to know what revenue it generated in the year.
I got you.
Just can't help you with that.
Quick question, is it per can? It says per occurrence.
Occurrence, I think it's.
So is it $100 if it's 2 cans, or is it $50 for 2 cans?
I don't know.
Not the bird.
Occurrence.
Per occurrence.
Occurrence would be
One.
time.
But it also says cart singular.
And I can also tell you that we are receiving revenue for this because, again, this is another item I get phone calls on.
Right. I'm fine with
Okay, Laura, go ahead. You had another question.
So Alice, on the trash per 96 gallon cart, and the splits, when people want a new can under the new contract, if their can is worn out, is there a separate charge for the worn out can, or are those replacements included in our new contract?
It's included in the new contract. So where in the past, they would be charged, you can see $80 per cart for additional or replacement. That charge is no longer in there.
Okay, so that's both for recycling and the trash cart. They can
Correct.
call, the wheels are off, they can get it replaced.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
It got dropped by the truck and shattered.
That's the one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one.
Okay, let's keep going,
Okay.
please.
The other fee, under other fees, you have golf cart registration. When we sent this all to departments for their feedback, there was a reminder that came back that this was eliminated in 2024. And I believe that was when the board went back to the state for golf carts.
Yes.
And so just, I'm
So there
sorry.
used to be a registration process for that, and there no longer is, since the board approved back in 2024 to go back to what the state requirements are for golf carts.
Alice, can I ask Bill to come up? Because Bill, I'm sorry, I remember that, but could you just describe that a little bit more? I think it's because they're paying for their registration through the state and following those guidelines, so we're not implementing anything additional.
Right. The state allowed municipalities and counties to have golf carts that are not street legal. You could operate on highways, 35 miles an hour or less. And then the town could come up with its own requirements. So we did away with that. You have to have a state street legal golf cart, which is now a low-speed vehicle. So it has a tag on it. If it doesn't have a tag on it, it's not allowed on the streets in North Topsail Beach.
And if it's over 35 miles an hour, it's still not allowed, correct?
It's not allowed over 35 miles an hour. Now, they can cross highways, and if you have private property on both sides, that's why you'll see some golf carts that don't have tags, like at Rogers Bay.
Yeah, that's what I was
They
thinking.
cross the highway to their own private property on both sides.
So like the Village of Stump Sound, Rogers Bay, they're
Right.
allowed to come across because they're still on their property.
As long as they go straight across from property to property. And that might mean going a little bit down, but you could still do that.
If it's actually on the road, it should have
A
a
tag.
license plate on it, just like a car.
Exactly.
Okay. Any additional questions on that? Okay, I just want to make sure everybody understood. Thank you, Bill. Sorry, Alice.
Last item is under parking fees. There's been no change here. It's basically just a description, a clarification on the description. So the annual, wait a minute. For standard lots, annual for one vehicle, if it's purchased at one time is 150, and annual two vehicles purchased at the same time, 250. So no changes there, it's just to clarify and add some more description in that. The parking committee has met and did not recommend any increases.
Can we go back to the home occupation permit?
Okay, well, let's finish that parking one. Is everybody good on parking first?
Yeah, I'm good on
before-
parking.
Okay, you good? All right, go ahead, Laura, sorry.
Can someone explain the home occupation permit? Page 3 of 9, other fees.
I'm looking for it.
I think I know what that is. That means you're certified to stay in there?
Yeah.
The home occupation permit
Right,
allows
yeah.
someone to run a business out of their house, like if they wanted to, if they were a hairdresser and have clients come to the house. It's not really germane for a type of business that you wouldn't have people coming to your house.
Okay.
So like a home office, you're saying is not necessarily
A home office would not fall into that.
So can we name that something better?
That's a traditional name, not just in North Topsail Beach, but throughout North Carolina.
Okay, so do we have any fee in when there's a violation, chief, where people's homes are not set up for 20 people and, you know, it's a 2 or 3 bedroom place and we're having these huge crowds come that put taxing on fire and police and everything else. So they are violating the occupancy that the home was built for.
and that's a different question, I believe, but.
If
a
I'm not
valid one.
mistaken, that's really on the rental companies or if they're going through a rental company, the onus is on them, and I'd seen some article about that.
Right.
And I think, to that point, a lot of people are doing their own rentals, which I think is problematic because. they're-
VRBOs.
Yes, so
Well,
I do believe they forget about their parking plan that they got approved when they built the house. or
right,
they
but
may
this
not know.
puts taxing on police and fire, and so it is an occupancy issue. And when homes are built, there is an idea around the number of occupants. So whether it's a person who's decided to turn their home into an event space, or they're having huge gatherings. So that's why the title of this one doesn't really say what it is, but I wanted to ask Chief, I mean, what, can we fine people for having 20 people in a 2-bedroom place, taxing water and sewer and parking?
The quick answer is no. The state does not give me authority in single-family residence, duplexes, stuff like that.
So townhouses, singles, condos, there's no?
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, I think the problem with that would be Joanne's got a 2-bedroom condo and she has a party for 25 people. So for 3 hours, she had 25 people there. How do you, I mean, the enforcement of this would be really hard. I agree with you. I don't like the fact that people are turning them into mini motels. That's what they are.
So is it more of, because you're talking about events, you're not talking necessarily about.
I'm talking about rentals where the place is geared for 6 or 8 people and they're having 15 and 20 people stay there.
So what we are not able to do here, I believe, because Alice, you and I have talked about this, is like in New Jersey, when we rented out our house, we had to have an inspection by the town. It sleeps this many, this is as many as you're allowed to have here. I think it was a privilege license, and I believe that those went away in North Carolina.
I think they're against the law.
Yeah, North Carolina, you can't have a privilege license.
Okay.
I looked at that years
All
ago.
right, so this occupation has nothing to do with occupancy. Thank you.
No.
I do know that for like VBRO and some of them, that if you are a homeowner, and correct me if I'm wrong, and you're renting your place out, that if it has a 12-person occupancy and you know that more people are coming, it can really mess with your insurance, it can mess with a lot of things, and VBRO and some of them really discourage.
So there's settings in VRBO and Airbnb where they can auto confirm. So you could have a whole group of high school kids or college kids come and they just automatically get confirmed and go. I don't have mine set up that way. I have to actually talk to the person and approve them. So, you know, I'm sure I get lied to sometimes, but I do the best I can to try and make sure that they're above the minimum age and that there's not 20,000 people. Most people are honest and they say, I want to hold a wedding. Can I rent your house? And I don't have adequate parking for that, so I say no. And then what other people do is if they're conscientious, they talk to the person about that. I don't have parking, where are you going to park, and those types of things. But it still happens. And I don't know how we get away from that.
Okay, no, so that's the issue, is that by the time you get back to the rental company, by the time you get back to somebody, usually these things happen on the weekend, and by the time anybody addresses it, the crowd is gone, but they've already created havoc in that neighborhood for whatever time they were there. And most of the time, the owners don't know that there were 20 people there or 12 staying for the whole week in a place that really has occupancy rated for 6. So that was my concern, but we don't have a way, I'm finding out, to set a fine for that.
Yeah, no, and we've talked about that over the years. I think everybody shares that concern and just, you know, a lot of times they're trying to park cars, they just won't fit.
They won't know.
You know, they don't fit, and it's a problem, but, I mean, maybe we could think about that, but I don't know how to fix that. Go ahead, Rick.
I withdraw my request to take this to the board, and I'm fine with the fee schedule we've got right now.
Okay. Any other questions on the fee schedule itself? Okay. All right, the last item is adjournment. Do I have a motion?
Is there a desire for the board to have the follow-up meeting tomorrow?
No.
Okay.
No, we're good. We appreciate all the work that has gone into getting us to this point.
So just real quick, are we satisfied with with our discussion on the fee schedule where, okay. Oh, okay. Good to go, yeah.
Do we have any department heads that find issues with the fee schedule? No, okay, then we're good.
Alice, is there anything else that you want us to discuss or clarification or anything for today?
No?
So it
Okay.
sounds like what will happen at the May meeting is hopefully we'll have the numbers for, you know, whenever they come in for the insurance and retirement. And then we still have a placeholder for the software.
Right. In May, the May meeting will be the scheduled time for the public hearing on the budget, which is required.
Yep. Okay.
I do have a comment, though. I've sat in this room a few years doing this, and I can recall budget workshops in the middle of June to the end of June, you know, trying to get it all done up against the wall, you know, the 30 June deadline. And I look at where we are right now, and I look at how far we are ahead of the game, middle of April, and for all intents and purposes, we're done. And thank you. Thank you, and thank you, staff.
Yep.
It's a culmination of everyone's
Thank you.
efforts with department heads getting their information on time as requested, and the Board of Aldermen giving timely feedback, so, yes, I appreciate it.
And we appreciate you putting up with our questions.
Motion to adjourn?
Yeah, we got to say, all in favor? Aye. All right, we're done.